Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine, and this week a lot more open water has opened up this week, but still lots of ice fishing to talk about. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
So before we begin, I want to just remind everybody that the contest for the rat is still up and running. There's another one in the chipmunk type color. And again, it's just a photo contest. I really want shots of anglers holding fish, though. I don't want just a shot of the fish laying on the ground next to your wader boots. But send those in. I'm going to pick my favorite to win the rat. And I'm also going to give away probably one or two Yozuri lures as well. I have some stuff here, some top-knock pencils and things like that. So, we'll probably do first and second runners up as well. So, send those in to danderson@thefisherman.com. And, you've got a couple more weeks until the contest is over. And we'll see who reigns supreme. So, as I was sort of alluding to in the intro, there's still a lot of ice fishing to be done. There's still a lot of safe ice throughout interior portions of New England. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, pretty much safe across the board. As you get, as you head further and further south, it becomes, you get closer and closer to finding places where the ice might not be safe. I did some traveling over the weekend to go up to my in-laws. They live in north central Massachusetts, and going up 146, we're kind of heading out of Providence, and all the ponds, close to Providence were either kind of like that dark, slushy ice or no ice at all. But as soon as we crossed over the border into Rhode Island, started seeing guys out there, with drilling holes and hanging out, people skating around. So there's still lots of safe ice, about 15 miles north of Providence and beyond. So still lots of ice fishing opportunities in interior northern portions of New England. Let's check in with Roy Leva now and see what he's seeing this week. Take it away, Roy.
Hey, Dave. This is the perks of living in New England, right? Yesterday it was 60 degrees, and today it is actually 30 degrees, and we're having snow squalls. But the ice has stayed. We have lost a little bit inches and some edges, so I do recommend taking caution. But the fishing has been excellent today. This is one that I just got him up to the hole. Nice big old bass. He took a big old pond shiner in 18 feet of water, believe it or not. So I'm going to get this thing down, get a few pictures of it, and we'll check in on next week. But if you're heading out, be safe, and plenty of ice out here in Western Mass. Take care. Tight lines.
Now, Roy did tell me, as he sent that report in, he said he recorded it a couple days ago, and he hasn't been able to get out since, but he wanted to caution everybody that it's been warm, it's been windy, and, so he doesn't know exactly what the ice conditions are going to be or what you might find. But, that's the best report that he could give with the situation that he's in right now. And again, we always appreciate these reports from readers, and especially, awesome fishermen like Roy. But anyone out there who's got a report that they'd like to contribute, I would be happy to have it, and I will definitely include it. Speaking of that, I heard from James Jukes again this week. He said that the ice fishing continued to be phenomenal. He was fishing northwestern Massachusetts. He said they did really well on big largemouth, had some pickerel, had some panfish, and they also had a really a surprise catch on the tip-up. This really nice white catfish, and that's very indicative or typical of what I've been hearing. Hearing about a lot of big pickerel and surprising numbers of really nice largemouth bass over the last 2 weeks, and I expect to see that continuing until ice out and beyond. And this is the time of year when I start to think about largemouth fishing. So there's no reason to believe that they're not waking up beneath the ice as well. As you head further south, and you start getting into the sort of the approach to Cape Cod and then all of southeastern Massachusetts, it's all open water fishing from there. I talked to Ian out on the Cape, And he said that things really woke up this week in many of the ponds out on the Cape. He sent me some, some in-hand shots of some of the trout that he caught. I got them here, including a real big tiger trout. But I think we got to take up a collection and get this guy a tripod, because love to see him holding the fish with both hands. You know what I mean? But in either case, he said he's doing really well on his little Baker jerk baits that he likes to throw. It's also a really good time of year to throw bait. In fact, he said he missed a really big brown on the same day that he caught these other fish, and the most popular way to get these bigger holdover browns right after ice out is with bait. So most guys will fish 2 rods. They got a night crawler on the bottom, usually blown up. Put a little air in there to keep it floating up off the bottom, and then they do another rod with a shiner, and that usually covers the bases. And it's a really good way to get maybe the biggest brown of the year. So that's something you might want to keep in mind. We're also hearing about some largemouth catches out there. I haven't heard about any smallmouth fishing, but I have to believe that that's going to start up anytime now with Ned rigs and blade baits and things like that. So that's something else to think about. No saltwater reports at all from Massachusetts. No big surprise there. But that's the story that I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. Over in Rhode Island, it's been kind of tough for the head boats, the charter boats, the party boats, because of the wind. It's just been so windy. And for me as a freshwater guy, I kind of like the wind because it's breaking up all this ice and opening things up. But for the party boats, it's made it really tough. And the reports that I've gotten when guys have gone out have been pretty good. In fact, much better than they have been for the rest of the winter. So the fish are starting to, they're starting to bunch up on some of the pieces where these guys do most of their fishing. But it's been really hard for these guys to stay on the bite because, they get a 1-day weather window, and then the fans come back on and they can't get back out there for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 days. And, even after 3 days, they get back out there, they go to the spot where the fish were, and they're nowhere to be found. So it's been really hard for them to stay on the bite, to pattern the fish, but overall, the cod bite has been better, and hopefully, we're going to get some more stable weather coming into the end of February and into March, and things will really start to stabilize, and these guys will start to be able to dial the bite in. But stay tuned to the report. I'll give you as much up-to-date information as I can as the weeks progress here. On the freshwater front in Rhode Island, it's been about the same as what you're hearing in southeastern Mass. A lot of open water, south of Providence, and lots of opportunity for various species, but it seems like largemouth bass and pickerel are the 2 main players right now. And again, been good catches of good-sized fish in this region as well. Holdover striper-wise, I haven't heard anything. I have to believe that these water bodies are open now. The ice is broken up and gone. It might just be a case of needing the water temperature to come up just a little bit more to get these fish active. I definitely expect to start hearing about that within the next 7 to 14 days. And we should start seeing the first few herring moving into some of these places as well, which should really kick things up. And that's a story that I have for you guys in Rhode Island this week. Over in Connecticut, the ice guys are still hanging on by a thread. Still safe ice on most of the coves in the Connecticut River, but the edges are definitely suspect. A lot of guys use some pretty sketchy methods to get out on the ice at this time of the year, especially with the rains, kind of making the water levels fluctuate. And also you have the tides. So, some guys will lay a ladder out there. Some guys will, lay some boards out there. I have to say I don't advocate that. That's not a definitely safe way to get out there. But, if you're one of those desperate, crazy types, then, be my guest. But definitely proceed with extreme caution. What I've heard on the pike front over the past 10 days or so is that it's really kind of started to peter out. They're struggling to get fish. They're still getting some. It's mostly the smaller males right now for whatever reason. Haven't heard about any really big ones. But in their place, there have been really good catches of smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, and phenomenal panfish catches, especially calico bass and yellow perch. And that's going to continue until the ice breaks up. And then, for the few that continue on in boats and from the shore fishing with rod and reel, those catches will continue even further. But, as I've said pretty much every week since the ice fishing started to get good, the Connecticut River is not the only place in Connecticut where you can catch good fish through the ice. The northwest corner of the state has a whole host of lakes that are very productive up there. And then, really anywhere from that 15 to 20 mile line inland north, you're going to find safe ice. And if you go on the DEP website, you can find all the information about where the sea forel and brown trout have been stocked. And some of those ponds are going to be opening up soon as well, if some of them may be open already, which will, broaden everybody's horizons. And it's going to give you an opportunity to catch a fish that, you wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. So definitely would highly recommend concentrating on those areas. We are also seeing an increase in action on the Housatonic River now. It's still mostly upper river, from Sunnyside north and really even further north than that. The fish are pretty heavily schooled up, so when you find them, you're usually going to find a lot of them. The difficult part is that they're not always willing to eat, and that's kind of been a trend over the last couple weeks, and that has continued because that water's still really cold. It makes it tough, and there's still some ice in spots, which is, only compounding things further. But every one of these rainstorms, I feel like it's going to raise that water temperature a little bit more, and it also, dumps a lot of new nutrients, a lot of new bait fish over the dam into the lower portions of the river where you have the shot at getting the striped bass, and when all that bait gets injected into the situation, those fish can't help but stir and start to chase some bait around. So that's an option that's good right now, and it's going to continue to get better and better, especially when some herring start to show up. And again, when that water temperature comes up a few more degrees, I expect to see that fishery as well just start to really blossom and turn into what we all know it can be. Especially toward the end of the winter, when it can really crank up and get amazing out there. So definitely something that you want to keep an eye on. And that's the story that I have for you guys in Connecticut this week. There's a couple other things that probably worth mentioning. The March issue is live online right now, and you will get it in your mailbox within the next week or so. A lot of good things on there, but some really pertinent things for the fisheries that we're talking about right now. There's a story by Dave Pickering in there which talks about kind of starting off your season with a holdover striped bass or a white perch, how to target those, the types of estuaries you can find them in. It's definitely centered on Rhode Island, but those methods will work outside as well. They'll work in Massachusetts, they'll work in Maine, and they'll work in Connecticut. That's something to think about. If you're still kind of like me, holed up in the workshop area, there's an article in there about building the Floyd Roman Nike. And it's a pretty cool plug. There's some history in the article as well. And a really fun build and a really cool plug, especially if you're a surf fisherman fishing for striped bass. This is going to give you a weapon that you've never had before. But outside of that, if you're not a subscriber to the Fisherman, I highly recommend heading over to the website and checking out the free content that we have there. You'll see that we cover a wide range of areas from Delaware all the way up to Maine. We've got reports and articles that tell you when and where to fish throughout that region and for all the different species. We cover a lot of niche fisheries as well. And if that still doesn't get you to want to subscribe, at the very least, subscribe here on YouTube. Give us a like and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. Appreciate you guys watching or listening if you're listening on the podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.